Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's continue with lots of inquisitive questions that I've developed and looked at the previous videos and developed some more inquiring and expansive questions. The first one is we talked about the entities and the manifestation, how we manifest with the entities and other realities in our life. And I would like to expand on the entity of the manifestation, how we manifest the mechanism of manifestation, how we manifest and actually the boundaries of manifestation. And I know from my experience that I floated, I physically floated.
Mm.
And I put a lot of spiritual attention or intention into it, and it happened, but only once in my life. And it was not. It was an occasion of great joy. Never happened again.
Mm.
And it's not a matter of how much effort I put into it. Not happened. And people, I know story of people who were able to physically manifest substance on the table,
Mm-hmm.
and people who do telekinesis and so forth, things that are not spiritual value, but are out of I would say, the physical laws that we are accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, our power to manifest is way beyond what we believe as normal physics.
Correct. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what you said about the physical laws, I mean, those are things that have kind of been put in as a limiter to what we create. So we say, okay, physical law, there is no physical law, there's a physical agreement of
Mm-hmm.
how are we going to manifest, what delay there is in it, what we can and cannot uh, you know uh, allow in our manifestation, and at the same time what's acceptable in regards, because so that is what has been handed down over and over again, because basically we get trained and
Mm-hmm.
programmed to stay within the boundaries, especially when your imagination, because this is what happens even as a child. They a lot of them have such creative minds, and they don't see boundaries, right? And for them, the only boundary that exists to start off with is the boundary that has been set through a genetic encodement and so forth as a starting line. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then from there, it's the interactions with other people that becomes the governing factor of how and what we have access to manifestation. Now,
That's the programming, the cultural programming.
correct. So there is that part of it. So even if the child is getting used to use their gifts of creation with no limits,
Mm-hmm.
it is squashed very quickly because they're kind of brought back into reality, which is just an idea and concept and belief system, where, oh, pull your head out of the clouds, and let's realize here that this is not how it works, and that you have to do this before you get this, and even then that doesn't, because some of them bring other traditional ideas of luck or this or that. So in essence,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the experiment gets kind of stopped along the way. Now, some children or some people, eventually, what happens is they start to feel dissonant with the um, the program, the idea, the concept, and they say, "No, I want to really play in that." So they will experiment and
Mm-hmm.
start to create a higher level of manifestation that is more in alignment. I mean, if we
Mhm.
understand, it's not like we manifest and we don't manifest. That's not the case. We are always manifesting everything. This whole
Mhm.
interview, everything that we're doing, what we're talking about, what our reality around us. I mean, we're in a field of energy. We're in a field of consciousness. We're in a field of potentiality. We're in the field of sourceness, essence. And the only reason we see what we see, we experience what we experience,
Mhm.
we see ourselves in a body, we feel and connect with the body is because we've created or continue to manifest that. So people say, well, okay, we're manifesting, then how come our manifestation doesn't change?
It
Well,
does.
it does.
It
But
does all the time.
what they're saying is, why can't I shift from this reality, go into a completely different reality? And there are people that do that. But in essence, the focus has to be in what is your energy and what is your consciousness focusing on. Because if you're focusing, or you have patterns that keep, so you're going to create what matches the patterns. So in essence, your manifestation is now within that range of what you accept. So in
Mhm.
essence, is why am I creating lousy relationships or poverty or this and that? Because they've adopted an idea that that's kind of the framework they can accept. So what they're doing is repeating the manifestation. Because many people, when they break out of that pattern, then the reality starts to change. So people all of a sudden come into their lives and something comes in to change part of it, or they all of a sudden the things they couldn't see are there, things that they've gone after couldn't come to them, and now all of a sudden they're coming because
Mhm.
they've actually shifted that part of it. Now, that saying in that, we are basically, what we're doing is upgrading our viewpoint, upgrading what we see, and that responds to how we start to manifest our reality around us. Now, there are other levels to it, because on a other perspective, there's first of all the personal manifestation, where we create personally what we desire or focus on or create in our viewpoint of how we see the world in our mind, how we see it from an energetic point, and that's what we'll create. Then there's, of course, we were saying earlier, in our before we started the interview, is that the other level is, of course, the agreement that we make, the agreement we make within our reality, being who
Mhm.
are we playing with. So it could be from the family dynamic,
Mhm.
extended family, could be from our friendship, can be from our community, can be from our collective of what we call the planet, or what we call collective consciousness of everybody that's on the planet. So those are all different levels. Now, uh, there is another aspect to that, which is the soul perspective.
Mhm.
So we say, okay, let's, before we get to the soul part, let's backtrack just quickly. So you may have certain beliefs,
I
and
do.
you shift
You
those
do.
beliefs, and your reality starts to shift personally. However, then you say, okay, why is there a little bit of a ceiling here of what I can create? Now the next level is, what's the belief in the family and the lineage and all of that stuff that's in there that is still connected to you, and you're feeding each other off in that manifestation component.
Mhm.
So now you look at it and say, okay, what beliefs am I supporting here that are family related, and that I may have some attachments to it, or some alignment with that.
Mhm.
So if your culture believes that this is the truth, or this is how it's done, if you're still in within that, you now may have changed your reality to a certain degree on a personal level, but now it's like, oh, okay, now there's a collective belief within the culture, the family dynamics, or whatever it may be, that becomes the next one. So now you have to kind of shift that part. Even though that is believed as what is, then you could start looking at and say, well, how much of it do I want to participate or change or shift within that belief system? And then you
Mhm.
start, even though it's being reinforced by the others around you, you can start shifting that part of it, how much you accept, don't accept, how much you want to be participating or not participating. Now, what happens in that manifestation, because we're all connected, is as you start to break out of those patterns or shift from those patterns, the members in the family, per se, say if it's in the family, also
Mm-hmm.
start to experience a shift within themselves. And the interactions that you have, and even the rigidity that they hold within that, becomes expanded. So that in fact, that they're not going to be so caught up. Now, what you will notice is that when they're interacting with you, they're coming into your energy field. When they're coming into your reality, their role will shift because you are not. So, for example, if somebody was really religious in
Mm-hmm.
your family, okay, and they're always preaching the religion, the belief, the
Mm-hmm.
deities, whatever. So as you start shifting your reality and now you start to unplug from certain patterns of the collective reality, say within the family dynamics where this individual is there that is very religious, as you start to shift that part, their appearance to you, your communication to you will change, and it'll be a little bit more aligned with where you're at. So even if they're religious, to bring that back, they may be in the rest of the family dynamic pushing religion with them. And then when they're interacting with you, they're not pushing it. Or they may be pushing it very minimally compared to the way it was. As,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, these are the rules. And this is how it works, or whatever it is. They'll find that with you, they can't. Now, why is that the case? Because in essence, their interaction with you is still interconnected with your reality creation, your manifestation field. So they're part of your manifestation. Now,
Yes.
even if they have default of how they act and respond and you know how they look at the world, when they're in your more direct manifestation field, then your creation of or manifestation affects the manifestation of their with you. They may go very different with others. So that shifts in that regard. Then of course the community aspect comes in, you know, and then you start doing the same thing. You start saying, okay, how much of the community I want to be participating. You may want to choose a certain percentage. Say, okay, yes, I can accept this, I can accept that, I can play with this, I can play that.
Mm-hmm.
You may not play it fully in the rigid form. Say, for example, oh, yes, I want to have a connection with people and I want to be part of, say, a community party or a community picnic or a community
Mm-hmm.
whatever. You can say, well, yes, I want to play that. However, when you're there and they have certain ways that they're going to play that reality,
Mm-hmm.
may say, okay, I only want a part of that. The other part of it, I want to have different. So, for example, everybody sits down and they eat and they want to just talk and so forth. Then you got to say, hey, let's go play ball or let's
Mm-hmm.
do something else, right? And they say,
Mm-hmm.
well, no, you know, and I say, look over there. We can go play over there. So you start to, and what happens is whoever wants to follow will. In most cases, if you're more pay attention to it, you're creating a shift because they're all connected to you because they're all, when I say connected, in your manifestation field. So their manifestation field starts to alter to match a little bit closer to your manifestation field, and then you're going to go and play together and have fun and whatever else is going to take
Mm-hmm.
place, right?
This this is this is a very very I would say deep and extensive subject about the manifestation fields that each one of us is creating,
Mhm.
the interaction and the power, the relative power, and
Correct.
how we let's say affect each other,
Correct.
right?
Absolutely.
So let's postpone this subject later on.
Okay.
Okay, and let's focus on uh, the mechanism of manifesting, what we call mechanism, because maybe what's my definition of creating or manifesting reality is different from yours. So let's Let's hear your point of view. What is manifestation?
Well,
And
unless you want to go first and share with what you see as manifestation, it's up to you. I mean, or I can.
okay, my view of manifestation is having intent, which could be conscious or unconscious, about what I want to have in my life, and taking the energy and the effort to create that in my life, in a conscious way or non-conscious. As the more I am evolved, I would say um spiritual is not the word. I would say psychology, personally aware of yourself.
Mhm.
You're aware. You're better. I would say receptive to what are your feeling, what you have in your life,
Mhm.
and how you interact with the people and the reality. So
Right.
it's not really spiritual. It's more like awareness, personal awareness about what you attract and what you do in your life.
Mhm.
But another layer is the spiritual layer, where we attract, I would say, opportunities. And when I say opportunities, not necessarily the good ones, okay? It could be also the negative one, or let's say the unpleasant ones as well,
Mhm.
experiences. Okay? I wouldn't say bad or worse, I'll say unpleasant. It's less polarized,
Mhm.
okay? Um, so on a spiritual level, I would say we are bounded with our, I would say, collective hypnotic beliefs in the, I would say, objective reality, which is physics.
Right.
And physics is the, I would say, the rule of this virtual game. If you go to, let's say, another uh, a virtual game software, there are the parameters of the physics, you can change them.
Mhm.
Same in here. That's the way I see it.
Mhm.
And maybe you have a different perspective.
Well, I wouldn't say different. I mean, I do agree with most of what you've said there. In regards to manifestation, uh, yeah, it's true that when you're talking about um, a level, because even coming onto the planet, for example, as a soul, you come onto the planet and you are made aware as a soul that, or spirit, we want to call it, that you are going to be working within a certain parameter. So, in essence, say you're a soul that has had lives on other planets and, like you said, other video games, and have been exposed to uh, different physics, if you want to call it that. It's not really
Mm-hmm.
physics, but in different physics, that what is not manifestable here on
Mm-hmm.
planet Earth is very easily it's common practice in another planet. So,
Mm-hmm.
in essence, when you're coming here, you're kind of looking at it, and there's your team that supports you, because there is a team sort of thing
Mm-hmm.
that says, okay, you're going there, but you can't use all the stuff that you have gained from other experiences, because there is a certain guideline that you need to fit in, even though it might be just the starting point, but at some point, you know, this is acceptable and this is not acceptable because of where the group of
Mm-hmm.
humans, or what you call souls in those human bodies, are still going through a certain process of, expanding themselves in that reality. And plus also is that when you go there, there's a heaviness of um, that is felt in within the construct of the, what we call the manifestation rules, per se. They're not specific rules, but what is adopted rules, so forth. So when you're going there, it's like you're coming to planet Earth and say, well, I want to create this, I want to create that, I want to do this, and whatever it is. Then you're going to have kind of a collective, because energy manifestation that comes back and says, no, you can't do that, because collectively we're not ready to see that. We're not ready to experience that. Now, some people will activate certain parts of it, and they will do it more secretly, if you want to call it that. And when I say secretly, not in grand public. However, there's a limit to that too, because even if you do it in your own home, for example, you're still connected to everyone. So you're already opening up a certain energy that is filtered, or what we call streamed, throughout the whole collective.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, certain things become, okay, I can do it, but I can only do this much rather than this much, because of the fact that I'm going to create a stream and so forth. Now that those limits are, reducing more and more as we go along. It was a lot more rigid before. So that's the first part. The second part, of course, the soul has to stay on track with what it came here to do. And sometimes some of our manifestations that we may, come up with, may be a distraction, maybe something that will keep us from focusing where we need to focus on what we need to create. And it also may oversee some of the agreements that are made beforehand, say
Mm-hmm.
with other souls coming onto the planet. So for example, you came into your family dynamics, and the family dynamics you may have made an agreement with, you have, let's not
Mm-hmm.
say may, you have made an agreement that you would come in and play specific roles, and they will play specific roles, and then of course the community extends from there a certain point. So you come in, and as much as you want to go out and play completely free, uh, that doesn't fit in within the agreements that are made. So those things come in at first. There are usually all starting points, and then from there it usually can change.
Mm-hmm.
So in that level of manifestation, so yeah, you may have intent of creating something in your life a certain way, and the fact that the intent is there, the opportunity is there, the fact that there is, um, how could I say it, a desire for it or a vision for it, the potential is there. However,
Mm-hmm.
the boundary comes in, or what we can call boundary, the limiter that comes in,
Mm-hmm.
which is of our own agreement and creation, is that, okay, right now, the direction we're going and what we need to do and what is agreed upon, would bringing this into the equation as our reality or our manifestation going to be neutral? Is it going to be better to be more focused on track, or is it going to be a distraction or something that will take us off course altogether?
Mm-hmm.
So it
Very
looks at,
important. Yes.
yes, exactly. It looks at all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've done some seminars
Mm-hmm.
some time back, and the big question that kept coming to people coming along was, how come manifestation has changed? Some people manifest, some people no man. Well, the first reminder was, yeah, we're always manifesting, but what doesn't look like manifestation is like, I'm not getting what I want. Okay, I want this, right? So
So,
basically,
so yeah, so it's a matter of definition for what you want,
correct,
because many of the wants are not conscious.
correct, correct, exactly. So so what I say, well, we create on many levels. We create from a conscious level, we create from a subconscious level.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we also create through the soul level, or what we can call
Mm-hmm.
unconscious or superconscious. We also
Mm-hmm.
collect. We have two other levels of manifestation that we create through, which is basically agreement point, where we have certain connections with certain souls, and then the collective. They're all parts and parcel. Now,
Mm-hmm.
originally, the biggest factor was conscious and subconscious. And the superconscious had a smaller percentage of its creation capacity. And then the other two were small also. With things upgrading and expediting along the way,
Mm-hmm.
specifically in the last 30 plus years, but more specifically as of 2013 on,
Mm-hmm.
the ratio of of manifestation has gone much less through the conscious, much less in the subconscious, and much more to the superconscious, the um, the other level of consciousness, which is the level of consciousness from a collective perspective, but being in the smaller collective of your family dynamics and your community, and then the
Mm-hmm.
grand collective uh, consciousness, which is the consciousness of everybody on the planet. The reason for that to come into play was to keep us on track on what we were creating, because what happens is our conscious creation is very program driven.
Mm-hmm.
And the program driven is what we're being fed all the time, and what we've been taught, and what we've been, programmed to see. For example, people talk about manifestation. Well, I want to manifest this and this and this and this. The question is,
Mm-hmm.
where's that coming from? Is it, first of all, genuinely yours, or is it a programmed of yours? The other part of it, how did it get in there?
Mm-hmm.
Where's your viewpoint uh, res- residing from? The subconscious mind is a little different. The subconscious mind is your belief systems, but it is programmed also, but it's also part of your experiences. So if you came in through a house of poverty, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
non-worth or any of that, those are all programs and stories anyways,
Yes.
then subconsciously those play a role.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you ask the big question, if we're going to rely on the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, how on track are we going to be for the bigger purpose? You can see that those can actually take off track and stay off track for a very long time. So this is why the superconscious came in, which is basically your soul
Mm-hmm.
higher self and your soul family, kicked in saying, okay, you can have some of this stuff coming from a conscious, subconscious, but we need the priority now is your advancement and your staying on track with what you came here to do. And even though that's changing, it still has to stay on track. But the next factor that came in is, okay, how can I? So you say, okay, super conscious, what we're going to do is we're going to manifest various experiences, various intensities of whatever is going on, and whatever we're going to bring in to
Mm-hmm.
basically help reprogram the subconscious mind and the conscious mind.
Okay.
Okay? But at the same time, the superconscious mind also is communicating with your family dynamics and their superconscious mind and say, how can I be of service to you while you're being in service to me, so that we see that we're all one, and for me to benefit, you're going to benefit, and you need to benefit before I can benefit, and so forth. So then there's that communication, superconscious to superconscious, okay?
Okay.
Which, whatever they're experiencing at a superconscious level, is affecting their subconscious mind and their conscious mind. Then the next level, which is the third, fourth, the fifth level, whatever it is the collective consciousness. I know there's a few other ones in between, but usually it's the
Mm-hmm.
community and whatever else. But the next level is the collective of the planet. So now you're looking at all the souls of the collective and say, okay, how can I best serve on a collective perspective? So super
Mm-hmm.
consciously, now you will manifest certain realities. For example, let me bring you one quick example. We're doing it right now.
The examples are extremely useful and required to get from the abstract to the concrete.
Yes, perfect. So let's look at this. Here's an example. This conversation that we're having right now
Mm-hmm.
is advancing and playing at a superconscious level. But
Mm-hmm.
it's also modifying your subconscious mind and your conscious mind. But it doesn't stop there. You are now also upgrading the community conversation with your family dynamics souls or superconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this that we're doing is affecting the bigger part, which is the collective consciousness of the whole planet. It's not only the people that are watching this, it's just energetically, we're changing the whole field within it.
Well, it's bi-directional. It says that ideas are like contagious viruses.
Yes.
Okay. Um, the thing that I see that okay, we see okay, one candle can light lots of dark. Lots of dark cannot distinguish, extinguish,
Extinguish. Extinguish. Yeah.
extinguish the candle. But my experience, there are some people that, as much as let's say I bring light, they are negative. I would say they are energy vampires.
Correct.
So um, not they are not bad. Okay, they are just there and they consume others' energy. And when I stay for around such a person for a long time, I feel that I'm drained.
Mhm.
So so it's also kind of manifestation, isn't it?
Correct. But there's more to that if you're open to play with that. The thing is, too, uh, even what you call a darker or denser person or whatever you want to call it, they're only playing the role because on a collective scale that still applies. They're only playing the role because they haven't shifted their aspect of it. And
Mm-hmm.
then you being the light, for example, then coming into the room, like, okay, you're going to go to a party, you're going to go to a group of people, and a lot of the people are lower vibration and lower states of playing in the drama, whatever it is. So you're
Mm-hmm.
coming in and you're not engaging in the drama. Now, there's two parts to that. You can come in and you're going to radiate your light, and the ones that are kind of open for it will start to shift their level to come closer to yours. Others will choose, no, I want to stay in the dark, and they will. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
you're engaging where you want to shift that, so you're going in with an energy, I got to change this, then it's going to expend a lot of energy for you trying to light up the dark, for example, just as an example.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this. You're going to go into a room that's really foggy and heavy, heavy darkness. And now you have your little candle. Yeah, it's creating a light. But because of the fog, the light only travels a certain part because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it is reflected back into because of the fog, but the rest of it is pretty dark. So what you're going to do is you're going to crank up the light so make it brighter and brighter so that it goes through the thickness of the fog.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay, but you're going to expend a lot more fuel unless the fuel is being replenished. You're going to feel drained, right? The other
Mm-hmm.
part is you can go into a group of people or even one individual and they may be dark or lower vibration, if you want to call it that, because nobody's dark, nobody's light. We're basically a
Mm-hmm.
full spectrum, but we choose to emanate a certain level of
Mm-hmm.
darkness versus brightness, if you want to call it that. So in essence, you may communicate with this person, you may be interacting with this person, and if you are coming in very neutral and you're holding into your own energy source without having that energy source go out to them and bounce back. Because what happens is a lot of us, what they do is, oh, I'm going to emanate light, and you're emanating light, but you're emanating light without replenishing it, but you're waiting for that light to bounce back or come back to you. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what happens is it doesn't. So then it drains it because you're not getting it back. That's what we call energy vampires. So the energy vampires go, oh, okay, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it, but I'm still going to emanate my darkness. And here you are because you're depending on that to bounce back, and it's not bouncing back,
Mm-hmm.
then you get drained. But if you're going in and you're opening that light to come out, and you're replenishing from your field that energy, and you're the creator of the field
Hmm.
anyways. So then it doesn't matter how much they take, they won't drain you, first of all. Second of all, because you're coming in such a replenish, it's like this. You could start with a glass of water and you say, okay, I only have this much water. So you pour your water in that glass and hoping that that glass will share it back to you, but it's not happening. So in
Hmm.
essence, you've raised the water on this side, but yours is depleted.
Hmm.
Okay. So what happens, you end up feeling that depletion. But if you are a pitcher and the water just keeps flowing in it and the level always stays up, you can fill that glass, and the glass is going to keep filling, filling, filling. You're never drained because your glass is always full, or your pitcher is very full, and it keeps going, and then it starts to overflow. So in essence, it can't hold anymore, and it starts to change that part. So what happens is, energetically, they can't hold the darkness to that, and then you start breaking that part of it because it's, oh, there's too much light, I can't, it's overflowing now, and I
Hmm.
can't hold that darkness. So what happens is, even if they don't become super brilliant, they're not going to be able to hold the same darkness because of it, because you've
Hmm.
overfilled them. But your source is constant, rather than
Okay.
I'm going in with this much, I'm going to share it, hopefully they'll share it back, but it doesn't. And
Mhm.
this is what happens energetically, what we end up doing. And I've been caught with that myself. Less now, but in essence, sometimes you go in and you go, okay, I'm gonna, but you've cut off your source in a sense, and can't cut off the source because we're in the field of the source, but we've kind of blocked off the for us to be connected to the field, and we, even though we're part of the field, and we're saying, well, no, I'm going to
Mhm.
be. It's like a jar. You take a glass jar and you put a lid in it full of water, and then you drop it in the ocean. You're in the ocean. It's lots of water there,
Mhm.
and but you're still containing only so much because the lid's on it. But once you take the lid off, that water that was in there becomes more of that water that's around there, and of course now you're
Mhm.
endless. And this is what
Mhm.
happens to people, is that when we get, oh, I got my jar full and I'm ready, but they put the lid on, and then they go out, and if they open the lid, they're pouring it, but what happened, they're not allowing the rest of the field, the rest of the energy around them to refill them.
And I believe that's the illusion of scarcity.
Correct.
There is a limit to the amount of light that we can carry and bring in.
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so let's get back if we can. What's the time? Okay, um, let's get back to the subject of manifestation,
Mhm.
and um, let's talk about the mechanisms, the subconscious and conscious mechanism,
Mhm.
how we create, and what are, let's say, okay, the effective or non-effective or defective behaviors, mechanism that I would say sabotage our manifestation.
Well, as much as we can call it sabotage, it's more of a misalignment that creates, because if we create separation, so you have the conscious idea, say, to manifest something, and then you have the subconscious idea that, for example, okay, I want to manifest um, a beautiful home, or money, or car, this, that, or manifest good health, or whatever. So you say, okay, I want to shift my reality and I would like to manifest this.
Hmm.
Then, of course, the subconscious mind is in there and says, no, it's really hard. Let's take health, for example. I'd like to have a
Yes.
vibrant, healthy body. And
Hmm.
the subconscious belief system is, no, it's very hard. Everything is, with other people, it's very difficult. You can't be
You
well,
don't you don't deserve it.
or you don't deserve it. Yes. And, oh,
Yes.
you did something wrong in the past. Now you got to pay the price. There's all of that stuff that comes in. So then
Mm-hmm.
the subconscious mind, you can call it sabotage, but will come in and play a role in affecting that. which you want from a conscious level. So you got conscious, subconscious. But then the superconscious turns around and, like we were saying before, is that how does this benefit us now on a grander scale, and how is it going to help all the other parts? So those are kind of the mechanism, and then it also looks at the other part. But the next level of mechanism, the the more aligned way to create um,
Hmm.
your manifestation to be in alignment is to bring into check the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the superconscious mind. And this is where you have a meeting sort of thing. Okay. So you say, okay, consciously, of course, I desire great health. So you write down, and it's best to write it down. I desire great health, vibrant
Hmm.
health. Okay. Then you ask the subconscious mind, do you have any issues with that? Well, say, well, I don't think we deserve it, or um, we we need to punish ourselves, and because in fact we did something wrong, or something like that. Or it may turn around and say,
Or age.
or age, yes, subconsciously, yes, at a
Mm.
certain age, perfect. I'm glad you brought that one in. At a certain age, this is what happens to you. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
we get old age. It's you tend to get sick, you tend to get
Mhm.
weak, you tend to get frail. You tend to do all of
Mhm.
that. So there's that part. Or the other part of the subconscious mind would step in and say, well, if we do this, then we may have we have more expectations from us. Because how many people use ill health to get away from doing certain things or living life a certain way?
It's a
Okay.
level. It's a level.
Yes. So there's
I used it.
yes
I
there.
used it a lot of time
Hmm.
as a child, also as a youth.
Yes. And then the other thing is too, oh, when I'm sick, I have people have more compassion to me, and they treat me differently.
Mhm.
And when I'm sick, uh, um, I find that I can get away with more things, and stuff like that, right? Than when
Yeah.
I'm well, you know. So those are all things you write down because you're asking the subconscious mind. Because now you got to go into each of those programs.
Hmm.
Okay. So you first you spend time making the list. Okay. So consciously, this is what I desire. You could ask yourself consciously, why do I desire this? What do I gain from it? What am I going to? How am I going to feel by doing that? Right.
Hmm.
And you write all that stuff down. Then, of course, if you're going to ask the subconscious mind, and of course, it can come up with all the stuff we just talked about, and also, yeah, we don't deserve it, or whatever, or we're not lucky, or whatever. Those are all beliefs in the
Hmm.
subconscious mind. Once you finish the list, then you go to your soul, your higher self, your superconscious mind. So you ask the superconscious mind, how do you feel about having this as part of our manifestation, as part of our reality, part of our journey at this point in time? And not
Hmm.
only how do we feel about it, are we on track with that? Will it just, take us off track or anything of that nature? And you write down each of those questions and the answers that come, because then you can look at it. So if you have three separate pieces of paper or one large piece of paper, some people do mind mapping where they use a big board or a big, something, and you can write it down. Okay, uh, conscious mind, subconscious mind, superconscious mind. Now you can bring the other factors later too, and ask your family dynamics. And when I say ask, you ask their higher selves or superconscious, and you can write
Hmm.
that down as a list. But I would start with the other three first. Okay,
Hmm.
and then you have the conversation with them. Say, okay, we have our reasons for all of this. You can ask your higher self, soul, superconscious. Okay, superconscious, does any of these belief systems still support us in any way? You know, and if it doesn't, then we go, okay, we're going to go in and clear this consciously. So you're going to spend some time to look at each of the things. So example, if I'm not well, I'm not expected to go to work. Use that one example.
Hmm.
Okay. And so you ask yourself, okay, we don't go to work because we're supporting the sickness part. However, what else, how much benefit are we getting out of that versus how much limits we're experiencing on the other side of things? Because it's not only we can't go to work, There's other things you might not be able to do. That could
Mhm.
be physically, you're not going to have the
Mhm.
strength to go play, have fun, or to travel.
Mhm.
But it doesn't stop there either. Maybe in that dynamics, it says, okay, well, I'm sick. I don't have financial money coming in, or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
financial energies coming in. That limits me even more because now I can't really do some other things that I don't want,
Mhm.
I would love to do. So now you got to do that balancing and say, okay, is that a really good trade off at this point in time? And not only the trade off and say, okay, if we brought good health in, now we need to go to work, but then we have the capacity to have resources, financial resources, and whatever else. But what is the real issue about working that makes us decide to stay sick so that we don't work? What aspect of it don't we really like? That's what you want to
Mhm.
find out. Because
Mhm.
a lot of times it's not going to work. It's because of the work you're doing, you might not be enjoying, first of all. Second of all, your interpretation of it, because really it's all interpretation. You can be at your job and you can decide to feel miserable about being there because you have an interpretation or an idea that this is not pleasant work or that, it's
Mhm.
very difficult. Or you can have a perception and say, let me just enjoy this. I'm going to work with computer programs. I'm going to use my creative skills. And it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. I want to play with this. And that
Mhm.
changes all of that. So a lot of times, being sick so you can avoid work or that you need a rest has a price, not so much a price, but also creates a whole other dynamics of manifestation and say, well,
Mhm.
okay, it's limiting me in a different way because listen, if you're going to call in sick from work, you can't really go out and just say I'm going to go party now, because in essence somebody's going to see you and report you or whatever
Mhm.
or something of that nature. And so in essence you're going to have to play the role, so that limits you to go out and do other things because of that.
Mhm.
So it's
Yes.
best to look at what's there that we are having an issue with work rather than saying that. So that's just one example
Mhm.
of what we would create
A
on a
good one.
subconscious level.
That's a very good one, and to many, it's also very effective,
Yes.
uh, especially for school children.
The, the, the,
Okay.
the, the thing is, the question that you ask yourself is, choosing to have this experience, what am I gaining in return versus what I'm losing?
Yes.
Because all of it ends up being one way. You can have it all. You could say, well, okay, I choose to be healthy because I choose to have that. But at
Hmm.
the same time, I don't have to avoid anything because now I can reshape how I'm going to play whatever was there before, or choose to give it up all completely. Say, okay, changing jobs, just if that was the example.
Okay. Let's follow this lead and look at, I would say, the limiting patterns that I would say uh, rope, not rope, bind us. Okay.
Bind us, okay.
Okay. Um, let's say I do the, let's say, the conference, the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious conference,
Hmm.
and we agree, but following up on the daily progress, I'm still in my old perceptions.
Hmm.
Okay? Let's say about health, about scarcity, about authority, and so forth.
Hmm.
I personally, I use a lot the power of affirmations,
Hmm.
okay, to try to fix that. Sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not working. What is your suggestions about fixing, I would say, those limiting beliefs or traps that bind us?
Well, I wouldn't call it fixing. I would call it adjusting.
Mm-hmm.
those parts. But what I would suggest, first of all, is to be observant of those patterns, those defaults, those things that you tend to go back into. Now, affirmations play a role, but what happens is, in most cases, if you're saying something in an affirmation and there's still a strong disbelief, you can say it all you want, and it's like bullshit. That's not real.
Mm-hmm.
For example, somebody says, "Oh, I'm wealthy, I'm healthy, I'm this and that, whatever," and they say it
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over again. Now that creates a bit of a pattern disrupt, but a lot of times, what at the subconscious level, and especially with the ego that uses a lot of the subconscious stuff, will turn around and say, "No, we're not. We're lying. We're trying to con ourselves that we're not healthy, we're not wealthy,
Mm-hmm.
and we're having all these users." So even though you're putting that in, it starts to disregard it, and it's almost like noise. It doesn't want to pay attention to it anymore. You can
Mm-hmm.
have whatever it is around you. However, what happens is you look at it and say, all right, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, and whatever. This is what I desire to experience. And then you can go in and say, okay, consciously, are we good with this? Yes, we are. Subconsciously, say, are you good with this, or do we have any issues with any of this stuff? And that's where you come in. But you have to be observant. And when I say observant, you're going to be like a third person or a second person, if you want to call it that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like you working on yourself. And when you're working on yourself, you're going in and asking. Who's asking? It's your consciousness. It's your total consciousness. And you say, okay, let's take a look at all these things that are there. So affirmation play to a certain extent, but then of course, like you said, sometimes it doesn't work. It's because there's enough of the program in the subconscious mind, and the ego jumps in and says, no, that's not possible, that's not true, that's not whatever. Even though it may not be super loud in your head, it's there, it's very subtle, it's there, it's
Mm-hmm.
saying nah, nah. And I found that years ago, when the law of attraction came out, or what do you call it, The
Mm-hmm.
Secret, the movie, and
Yes,
whatever
that's
else.
it. Yes.
And I watched the movie because I went to the screening because it was with the group that I was promoting my work, and so she invited me, and I was there, and I was listening to all of that, which was exciting to say that, oh, okay, they brought up some information that was another step up.
Mm-hmm.
But I also realized, no, that's not going to work for everybody and fully either, because there's other levels we need to look at, and it was a stepping stone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even in that regards, right, when you look at it and say, well, the secret, I mean, we're manifesting all the time, we have this capacity, but we really need to look at is, and they talked about affirmations, and if I
Mm-hmm.
remember correctly, and they all talked about visualization, and they
Mm-hmm.
also the dream board or something like that, vision board, I think it was called, yes, vision
Mm-hmm.
board and all that stuff, which is great tools. But to use the vision board, and then we got to go to the next level and say, why do we really want this? Like, you could put your nice little red Ferrari there.
Mm-hmm.
You got to ask yourself, okay, yeah, the subconscious may say you deserve it, don't deserve it. People are going to judge you, whatever it is. You're going to be selfish. You're going to be whatever. Belief systems are in there. Okay. The other part of it is the questioning. And this is say, okay, what do we want this for? What do we gain from having this red Ferrari? And then ask the questions and pay attention to the answers. Oh, I will feel better of myself. I can go against all my belief systems that I was never worthy or that I wasn't good enough, because now that I have a red Ferrari, oh yeah, I made it. I have the dream house, I have the dream relationship, I have this car,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those don't work, because what you're doing is you're bringing in the red Ferrari as a substitute or as a filler of all the voids. Now, some
Mm-hmm.
people will still get it, only to because at the super conscious level, it says, okay, try it out, see if it fills the void. And in most cases, they won't, because it may be okay for a short while, but then you'll find that the void is still there. because all the other stuff that you believe about yourself, and then you might crash the car, or it's stolen or whatever it
Mhm.
is, and it's gone. So you have to look at it and say, well, I'm not looking for a replacement for emptiness or voids. I'm looking for what I really want to gain from this. And that is, I really want to feel good about myself. But now we're going to go in and say, why do I not feel good about myself? You need to look at the stories, the programs, the belief systems, and all that stuff that's there at the subconscious level, but you also bring in the superconscious. So you could see how those things come into play in that regard. So observing, questioning is very powerful. So if you have a certain program pattern coming in,
Let me bring one which very, very powerful on me,
mhm,
which is the belief in scarcity.
right,
I'm very frugal, and I shouldn't be, because if I'm frugal, I'm empowering the belief in scarcity.
correct.
But when, let's say, let's say I go and have a flashy dinner outside,
Mhm.
I feel bad. I feel like I'm wasting, right?
You feel
So,
like you what?
like I'm wasting,
Oh,
wasting
wasting.
my,
All right, right.
wasting my our energy. We could spend something on a better investment. So there's always this internal belief of scarcity. There's not enough. We should save. We should turn off the light, right? Save electricity,
Mhm.
and so forth. And part of my affirmation is belief, is trying to, as I said, that everything is going in a flow and in ease and with fun. So I don't know how to replace this internal belief in scarcity, which is a programming, okay, with a belief on abundance.
Okay. First of all, you don't want to have a belief replace a belief. So we're going to go from away from the belief idea, because
Okay.
basically you're going to tune into who you are. Um, but I don't want to correct you. I'm just kind of pointing out something that we can go further, because it's much more powerful to get rid of all beliefs at this point in time and going into that knowing of or creation mode, what we call conscious creation instead of subconscious and so forth. So, anyways, in that respect, again, it's going in and asking yourself, what's the scarcity about? What are we so concerned about the scarcity? Where are we getting this from? That's where you have the conversation. You ask
That
yourself.
that's from childhood. That's
Okay,
about survival and that stuff, which is
perfect.
imaginary. Okay,
Yes,
it's imaginary.
yes,
It's I would say it's a matter of imaginary belief of insecurity.
correct. Okay, so that's great. See that you have it all written down.
Yeah.
Now you're going to ask yourself, all right, do we still want to play with that? Does it still serve us to play with that? Just ask yourself. And you're going to ask the various parts. You're going to ask your conscious mind, you're going to ask your subconscious mind, and you're going to ask your superconscious mind. Does it still
Mhm.
benefit us? But even if you're going to deal with the subconscious alone, that's a belief of
Mhm.
scarcity, belief of, the fact of whatever you just said. For some reason, it slipped my mind now. So
Mhm.
you're going to look at all of that and you're going to say, okay, yes, we've taken on these beliefs. Yes, it has served us. Yes, it's, given us whatever we're experiencing right now. However, I'm asking at this point, does this still serve us? Are we still wanting to support this idea? How do we feel about it? Bring it up one by one.
Okay, I know that it's not serving me,
Hmm.
but at real time when I'm spending the money,
Hmm.
I feel the stench of the being frugal.
Correct. Okay.
Okay,
But you got to get into the
so
program now. You have to go into the
yeah,
program before you go to have your dinner, because you're going to need to clear that completely, because it's not only dinner. I'm sure it plays a lot of different things
mhm.
too for you
Yeah,
in other areas.
everything, every time that I spend something on
Hmm.
something.
So now you're going to go in and of course you're going to ask, it doesn't serve any longer. If it doesn't serve any longer, are we willing to now let this program go? And you may have inquiries say, well, I don't know how it's going to be. I don't trust there's going to be abundance. And if I use up all my money, then what am I going to do? Or something like that. So you need
Mm-hmm.
to start asking those questions, because you're going to go after the program. So the one program is there's not going to be enough, or the fact that, I need
Mm-hmm.
to be frugal, because if now in your case, uh, you're in a field where that's being supported, not only culturally but also in the collective of your land where that you're living.
Mm-hmm.
But that happens through a lot of places too, because you can have pockets of that aspect of it. But in some areas it's much more supported, so you have, at some point you may have to look at that and say, well, how much do I want to give power to the energies that are emitted? Because certain groups of people that live in a certain area may support that frugalness, or may
Mm-hmm.
support the fact that I need to always get a deal, or that I only buy and replace it if I absolutely need it and it's broken and I can't fix it and I can't steal it from someone, or I can't get it, whatever, then I can go and replace
Yes.
it. Because there's also the belief that money is power, money is holiness, money is worthiness, money is all of that. So you say, well, I can't use this because this is my reality, this is my energy, this is who I am, sort of thing. From, even in God's perspective, if I have this in God's perspective, I can now fit into the chosen people, or I can fit
Mm-hmm.
in, being whatever. There's a lot of different things that you would look at when you're going through that. So that's why the questioning comes in as you go along, and then as you see the programs, you go into the program, you tap into the program and say, okay, how do I resonate with this? How does it feel? Like, not only are you saying, well, I don't want this anymore. How does it feel? Spend some time doing imagination work, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically in your third eye, or your mind's eye. Let's call it mind's eye. See yourself playing that, and then feel the energies that you feel from it, and what limits come up and whatever else. And so as you're doing that, you get through your observer state, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
get to see more depth of it. And then, especially if you're putting feelings into it, it becomes even much more beneficial, because now, do say you get a certain feeling coming in, say a tightness in there, and say, okay, do I want to still live and experience this tightness every time I want to go in and, say, get a
Mm-hmm.
fancy meal, or go to a very nice restaurant, or that I want to buy a game or a new camera for my interviews, or whatever it is, and I
Mm-hmm.
have to feel this, that I have to go and always look for a bargain or whatever. How do I want to feel this? And how can we let it go? Well, we need to let it go by releasing the fact that we need to feel uncomfortable about the money or whatever it is. So you go into those areas. And once you pinpoint it, then you say, okay, if I choose to let go of this, I release not only this tightness, but I also release my default program. And are we
Oh,
good with that?
okay. Yes.
And then we
Yes.
say, okay, now,
It will take me some time. It will not be on the spot.
yes, I understand that.
Okay.
So now, this at times takes a little bit of work, because especially if
Mm-hmm.
it's like this. Take a bicycle wheel, okay? You have the hub in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have these spokes that go to the rim of
Mm-hmm.
the tire.
Yes.
So your reality is part of this, okay? But the core belief is this, whatever that may be, at the hub. But you
Mm-hmm.
can't just remove the hub that easily, because it's attached to all these spokes. You
Okay.
may have 10, you may have 2. So you need to look at where these spokes go, because the fear of scarcity has a connection to a collective belief, family belief, could be something we adopted from a child experience. So you need to go and look at those and start clearing those out. And how do you clear it? By going into each one and releasing the aspect of it. And of course, each
Mm-hmm.
one you experience. Once you've illuminated those spokes, you can pull the core out of it, and the reality around it is no longer fed by the same core with all the tied parts of it. So now your reality starts to change in a grander way. So now you're going to go to the restaurant, for example, in your particular example. You're going to order the meal, and you're not going to look at the menu and say, oh, okay, this is X amount of dollars or X amount of whatever, and
Mhm,
maybe I should get this on the menu because it's less expensive. You're going to go with what you feel. You're going to say, I'd like to have this as part of my meal. And I'm not looking at the price, okay, of what it's going to cost. And now you enjoy the meal. Now, when you're having a meal, you're not going to be with the mind going, "Oh, I could have invested that money elsewhere, or I could have replaced, the faucet that's leaking or something instead of coming here to have the
yes,
thing because this meal is going to cost me more than it would have cost me to replace something, for example."
mhm,
Or that, to keep it for a rainy day or anything of that nature. You're not going to bring that up. You're going to enjoy the meal. You're going to enjoy every morsel that you put in your mouth. You're going to be present with the ambiance and the energy that you
mhm,
feel with the people that you're deciding to have dinner with, because now they're, oh, you're not going to say to your kids or to your partner, oh, you can only order from this category because it's cheaper.
mhm,
You're going to let them order what they really desire to eat, and you're going to enjoy that whole aspect of it. You're going to leave there, and what you've done is created such a field that your manifestation thing will replenish that money and more at some point.
yes.
Out of, okay, where did that come from? Because you really immersed and enjoyed that experience rather than coming in, oh, because a lot of people say, well, does it help to just go to a fancy restaurant and have the meal? I said, if you're going to go in and say, oh, I'm going to have the meal because I'm going to break this pattern, it's not going to work. Not well at all, actually. Because all the other stuff, once you leave, the buyer's remorse comes in and, oh, what did I do? I still feel the same. I have all these fears. Now I spent so much money
Mhm,
for whatever it is. So you need to go into those programs so that when you go there, you're not carrying the programs and you're now going to enjoy it. And that opens your field of reality. So what happens, your manifesting field actually has other parts of it that you've blocked off that you would not activate now coming to the surface and say, oh, I can see this and I can create this. And all of a sudden you can bring in more abundance, for example, because you've opened that up because you've given yourself
mhm.
the opportunity to enjoy it.
Thank you. Very good advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, let's stop this recording and create another video.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, so we'll wrap this up. Thank you,
Okay.
and we'll play on the next
Okay.
one.